Hey guys. So, tonight I was watching some ASMR and I thought to myself, this is incredibly relaxing. I don't think it's too outside the realm of possibility for me, someone who enjoys ASMR and who is a content creator in and of myself, to create content in a new way. Or at least, just dabble. Just dabble because, it's not too late. It's 1:30 a.m., but that's not too late. That's fine. That's pretty early for me, actually. What do you think? So, uh, so I figured I'd give this a try. What I would do is sit here and just invite you along in my sort of late night sketching and drawing journey. And hopefully you like this. Hopefully this isn't just a total waste of time. So let's get into it here. What do I got going on? I am currently working on just a fun piece, actually. This is a nice fun piece. A fun piece of One Piece. Teehee. Very funny, cute rhyme that I've made. So there are these characters from One Piece that I really enjoy. One Piece the anime, named Franky and Robin. I am a so dreaded shipper of these two characters. But on top of being a huge One Piece fan and a huge shipping, awful romance addicted person, I'm also a avid D&D player, as I'm sure those of you who will probably be in this select crowd of people listening to this already know. And so I figured I could marry those two loves of D&D and One Piece together in a special little amalgam of just horrid nerdiness. In a way, I'm shipping these two sort of things that I like together as well, I suppose. Be that as it may, I wanted to draw my two favorite characters from One Piece, Franky and Robin, in the style of a D&D sort of two D&D characters. Right now you're seeing me really come in here and just rough in some lines and dynamic shapes. Actually, what I'm gonna do, this is just so you're aware, this is a redraw of the piece I did in 2018. I'm taking it way back, all the way back in 2018. That's 4 years ago. Yeah, something like 4 years ago. At some point, maybe a little less, depending on when in the year I did it. All that to be said, I am just giving it a try. I'm kind of rambling to myself so that I can make some content that maybe might relax you. Remains to be seen if that is or is not the case. We're going to give it a try. So, like I said, first I have my first character, Franky, here. And what he is going to be doing is having his totally canonical and not at all headcanon wife. And by that I really do, I say that incredibly sarcastically, since romance is not a part of One Piece, and I'm frankly glad for it. But his comrade, we'll say, wife, wink wink, his comrade, Nico Robin, on his shoulder here. I'm realizing now it's very hard to think and speak and draw all at the same time. This really is a skill, acquired skill. But all that being said, so what you're witnessing me do right now is just sort of place in Franky. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, I'll admit. Because I do need to be considerate of a whole nother person who's going to be in this picture. What that means is I'm probably going to have to click the transform tool, size that down a little bit, click enter. While I'm at it, I'm going to do myself a favor for later and save this baby. Because if there's one thing that can really put a damper on some stuff, it is for sure losing a file. Gonna save that baby out. And next thing's next, which is a real saying that real human beings say. I'm gonna turn down this opacity. Do myself a favor. Now in the corner here, I have two things happening on my screen. I'm not going to show you because I don't feel like wasting my time doing that. But I have a picture of someone holding someone else on their shoulder. The difference is it's going to be a bit hard to use as a reference because Franky is so much bigger than Robin. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to change the color here. I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to start to block in another person. I should probably start with her butt, right? Because her butt's going to start right on Franky's shoulder there. And we're going to start in the way that we know those of you who like reading One Piece or are familiar with it in any way, shape, or form. We're going to do it in the way that Eiichiro Oda would be proud of, by giving the woman an hourglass figure and not at all any other body type, because there are no such thing as women with different body types. Sad. But all that aside, I do still very much love this character. I do still very much love this series, flaws and all. So now you can see I'm blocking in this character. Need to be conscious of both her placement in this picture, how much room she's taking up over Franky's body, just because I don't want him to be completely obscured. But I also want the pose to make sense. So, coming in, blocking out some more stuff. If you've ever taken a look at the way that I draw people, particularly people on the thinner side, I love drawing people with frighteningly thin ankles. I was about to say I don't know where I've gotten that from, but I know exactly where I got that from. For many, many years, I enjoyed the art, and I still do, frankly, though his style has changed quite significantly from the days of yore. I really, really enjoyed the artwork of this fellow by the name of Humberto Ramos, who is far as I'm aware, a Mexican illustrator for comics, like Marvel Comics and DC. I think he did one or two DC things, but I'm not sure. I think Marvel might have him on a pretty short leash. But all that to say, he always draws characters with just insanely small ankles, and when you look at it, you think to yourself, God, why does that person have such small ankles? They're gonna try to round a corner, and if the corner's too sharp, they're just gonna kind of come right off. Their feet are just gonna come right off like little like toothpicks. But it really does add kind of this very unique sort of, I don't know, this sort of dynamic to the silhouette, where it's very recognizable, where, you know, the kind of like ankle, you know, the leg comes to an end. So I'm still blocking everything in with Robin here. I think I actually originally, you know what, I'm actually going to do that. In the original pose, I had her leg kind of coming up like this. She was placing it against Franky's sort of pectoral, and then kind of had her arm resting here on the end. You can see this is why I, you know, charge so much money for artwork, because of the amount of time it takes to just kind of sit here and even plan. Now this is, I mean, bear in mind, this is an illustration I've already done in the past, so I'm kind of just revising something that's already done. But to really sit here and have a plan for it is something that takes a lot of doing, you know? It takes a lot of practice for sure, but it takes mostly just a lot of doing. Forgive me if I burp a whole lot. I had pierogies for dinner, and they were delicious. But they were also loaded. They were loaded with flavor. They were loaded with potatoes. And they were loaded with bacon seasoning, which was tremendous tasting. But also very gas-inducing. So forgive me if I have to take a moment to expel something or take a drink. Sorry. I gotta make sure my mouth is nice and wet for all the people who just adore mouth sounds, which I'm sure is none of you. So, as you can see, there's a lot of people when sketching poses and bodies and stuff like that who will take the time to really sit and figure out the way that the body kind of sits, you know? Figure out the angle in which, you know, everything is sitting. I'm not one of those people. I am so used to rushing things as fast as I possibly can for my 9 to 5. And that kind of anxiety carries over into my life after work when I rush through basically everything. I think her arm is looking a little bit long. Yeah, I think her arm's looking a little bit long. That is one thing that Robin is notorious for, this character from One Piece, is having just big old arms. Because if you know anything about her, her power is that she can make arms kind of spring up from any which way. As well as just every part of her body, which is very cool, you know, when you're making giant versions of yourself and stuff like that. It's very, very neat. I love this character so much. Hands are something I really enjoy doing. Problem is, sometimes the 15 hand poses that I really enjoy making are not really applicable to the given situation. It does make me wonder if this is really the way that it should be. So I think I want her looking down at Franky, you know? I think I want her looking down at him. Things are looking a little bit stiff now. So a lot of people, when they're, really coming in here and sketching things out, will take a couple passes at it. And it's pretty late at night, and I'm just doing this for fun. So I don't know if I will. But I'll tell you what I am going to do, because it's that time. Ye old canvas flip. We're looking good right now. We're looking real good. It's not often that you flip your canvas and find that everything just looks right. Perfect. For those of you who are not artists, flipping the canvas is something that artists should regularly partake in doing because it prevents things from being askew. One thing that artists can tend to do is be sitting at an angle, regardless of whether or not you have a very nice tablet like I do. I'm very blessed to have this beautiful tablet. It does not help me sitting in a deeply wrong angle. But when you're sitting in this sort of angle, you can start to see things a bit skewed. So the key is you want to flip your canvas to ensure that everything looks even. Because as I'm sure you are aware, when you look in the mirror, you're not seeing a completely distorted version of yourself where your eye's a bit lower on one side than the other. Can't speak for everyone, of course. But at least for me, and the majority of the people that I draw, that is not really the case. Hope you are enjoying this. Hope you're enjoying the sounds that my pen makes from time to time. Last time I drew this, I did not really try very hard with Robin's horns. I think I just wanted to be done with the horns. Their horns are always a little bit complicated. And so I think I just went, you know what? Who needs them? But today is not that day. Today, I'm going to really get in there. These horns, I think. One thing that I really love about this character, Nico Robin, is that even for anime, she has a strange nose. I feel like a lot of times anime does this thing where they give you these characters with these cute little button noses. And that's become kind of the norm for anime and for a lot of beauty standards, just Western or otherwise, that we have this real fascination and love with little pixie noses. And if you have one, you know what? Good on you. You are kind of the beauty standard for a lot of Eastern and Western cultures. But not everyone has those kinds of noses. And that's something I like to really, as the possessor of a rather large nose myself, just a monstrous schnoz. I really like to just bring out all the love for those that have, just something other than a pixie nose. And Robin is one such character. Like I was saying, for anime, it's rather unusual to see someone really define the bridge of someone's nose, particularly a woman. Because, sometimes can give men strange noses and whatnot, but for women, it's very unacceptable to have anything aside from a pixie nose. So to see a character like Robin who has just a, ever so defined bridge of her nose. I find that really charming, and I really love to sort of accentuate that when I draw her. I give her a very pointed nose, and I think that's just lovely. Another thing I love about Robin is that she always has this very coy smile on, which matches perfectly with Franky's sort of big, goofy grin. If you can't tell, I'm a huge sucker for kind of the pairing of one person who's very intelligent and sly, and the other who's just a big goofball. It's a good dynamic. I like it. Works for me some many times, I would say. Not all times, but many times. So now I'm kind of getting in here, right? I think I'm just kind of messing around. I'm sure you've noticed by now that I'm really, really roughing it out. And we're not speeding this up, folks. You guys are on this ride with me as I'm coming in here and really doing this. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to really put the kibosh. Is that relevant to what I'm saying? Might not be. I'm not really sure. All this to say, I'm really gonna just kind of go all out for you guys. What I think I'm getting at here. I go all out for you guys. I'm gonna come in here, and I'm gonna, despite what I said earlier, I'm gonna hit this a few times. I'm gonna give this a couple passes. I think I feel pretty good about where these guys are. I think I'm looking at this now. I think things are looking pretty good. The flipped canvas is really doing me a lot of favors here. I'm really ensuring that I'm not messing up. I'm gonna take Franky's arm here. Sometimes I find that, I think with male bodies in particular, I'm very used to, growing up with superhero comics and, how they kind of really, for some reason, really love to embellish the sort of form, the male form. I always found it a bit, I didn't always, I think I recently found it a bit strange. Like, why is there so much muscle definition on, superheroes, when spandex really kind of covers a lot of that? I mean, fabric, unless it is, glued to your skin, does still fold and, kind of pull taut in certain areas. And it does not, conform to every, nook and cranny of your, body. Fortunately, I would say. Because if it did, it might get a little chafy. I think I like the way this hand is turning. So what I was saying was, I think I'm used to kind of the male form from that. You grow up and you read how to draw Marvel comics, and you kind of admire certain, superhero characters, and they have these rock hard abs. Everybody, every minute of every day, their abs are just clenched. So I think when it comes to stuff like that, I'm just so used to drawing male figures that sometimes I don't even have to think about it. But with female figures, I'm just not. It's just a very different can of worms. I've one is very delicate and round, and one is very sort of sharp and angular and bulky. Not to say that female figures cannot be sharp and bulky, and that male figures cannot have to be sort of sharp and bulky, and they can't be effeminate. Might be overdoing it here with the making exceptions, but I always think it's necessary to really kind of just treat your audience with respect and inclusion. Trying my best here. So, I think I like the idea of Franky very gingerly holding her up on his shoulder. I see a lot of these poses of men holding these women on their shoulders, like very, with their hands sort of across, like that beam that I just created. But no, I think Franky views her as very capable. He knows that she's going to keep herself balanced up there, and he feels, he can feel the kind of equilibrium of it all, and know that she's doing okay. You just kind of give her a little ginger hand there, just kind of like, doing okay? Now what I'm going to do, this is going to be the fun part. I'm going to start coming in here with some, we're gonna tighten up this looseness here. I'm going to stick with the purple, because I love the purple. I don't know how long this video has been going on for. It might be a long ass time. But I think what I'm going to try to do is at least get in these sketches toward the end of the night. So Franky typically has a metal nose with, big kind of bolts and stuff on it, kind of really solidifying the fact that he is a robot. But what I am going to do is actually treat those bolts just like piercings. Because while I really, I want to kind of honor the One Piece, the recognizability of the One Piece style and brand and everything, I think the one thing that I really want to do is still try to keep it very D&D. I think for an orc, makes sense that he would have lots of piercings to me. Seems like a very orc thing to do. Now on the old picture, I have kind of these lidded, eyeballs. This one, I think he really just needs to have that smiling face. He's just so happy to see her. He's so happy she's up here. She's with him. They're so in love. Look at him go. Okay, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with the blush. I'm going to start sculpting out the angle. Orcs typically have these big brows. I'm going to really accentuate those brows. Take a flip. Yeah, we're looking good. It's got big eyelashes. Another thing I love about Franky's design. Love them big eyelashes on the bottom lids, or the bottom lashes. I'm going to give him my iconic, the kind of sort of token, goofy smile here. Now, one thing I'm actually not doing right now that I'm going to have to stop myself from doing, and that is overthinking and over-detailing. I have a problem over a lot of my life where my sort of comic influence has really influenced the way that I draw and detail things. And in a lot of ways, it's hurt me, because when you draw things too detailed, you start getting this, you start overdoing it. You start getting the part where you're sort of overcompensating for a lack of, a lack of confidence. And not to say that, I think there are a lot of people, friends of mine even, who really like the lots of detail. But I think these days I've been really influenced by animation. And I really, really just admired people who can say a lot with a little. You know, people who don't really need these, like, just so many lines to really get the point across and kind of imply certain things. So you can see here, I'm kind of working out the shapes. And I'm doing my best not to get super detailed, like I just said. It's a little hard, though, because I do like details. I love them. But we're gonna get in here. I'm gonna start going a little bit faster. Okay? So one thing I forgot to include in this that Franky does actually have that I think is really important to him, being a sort of orcish artificer, which is how I'm sort of nailing this down to be D&D style. I don't know if you know anything about D&D or not. If you do not, you're watching this video. How did you find this video? What the hell? Sorry. But if you do, or, you know, then what I'm about to say is just preaching the choir here. So artificery in D&D is the sort of idea of magic mixing with technology. That you are kind of a whiz at creation through technology and through science of some kind. Doesn't have to be technology, I suppose. I guess it could be science. But that's the deal with artificers. That their magic is science. Or at least it mingles with science. And I think that is perfect for Franky, who is a very talented engineer. Supernaturally talented, I might add, because he can, like, build a bridge from, like, one building to another in, like, the span of 3 seconds. That was something that happened in the series. But yeah, I actually really love the design that I had for Franky. I gave him kind of this greaser, like a orcish greaser look, which is, you know, fairly accurate to his actual design. He has this big pompadour. You know, it's almost like a pompadour mullet because it comes down in the back here. This. Let's give him some piercings. Love me a piercing. It's just good. Just adds a little accoutrement. Which you have to say with an amateur French accent, or the French will come and find you. They won't do anything, but they will find you, and they'll know. They're watching right now. So we're going to give Franky down here his just iconic big giant freaking neck. So, aside from the sort of goggles here that he needs for artificery, going to try to maintain some, you know, some semblance of his design. There we go. You might be asking, why did I make him an orc? If you know anything about One Piece and or D&D, why did I make him an orc? And my reason is, first of all, how dare you question me? I know all, and I'm wise beyond your knowing, and, you know, I don't really appreciate that. But secondly, you know, all sarcasm aside, I just like orcs, and I think that should be a good enough reason, especially since it fits his sort of body type. All right. So now we're getting into the fun part, at least for me. This is the fun part. Okay, so never mind. Okay, so the face was also the fun fart. The face was also the fun fart. I like Yeah. So I like faces. But mostly, you know what? One pretty iconic thing about Franky is that his nose, even when it's metal, is just insanely small. This boy just has the smallest freaking nose. He does have the anime nose. He does have that. But I'm kind of mingling it here with orcish nose, which is teensy tiny, at least according to Warcraft. Alright, so back to business here. One of my favorite things about turning Franky from a, One Piece character into a D&D character is that I get to have a bit of fun here with his outfit. In the old outfit, he pretty much wears nothing. he wears basically no shirt and just a Speedo. And he wears like this sort of like weird Hawaiian shirt over top of his, sort of naked torso. And he wears a Speedo and he doesn't wear pants. And a lot of people had told me that I need to catch up with One Piece back when I was little. They would say, Nick, you have to watch One Piece. You're gonna love Franky. And I Googled him and I was like, oh, really? Everybody keeps saying this to me. Why am I gonna like this guy? And I look him up and I see what he looks like. Shirtless, in a Speedo with like 3 clefts, like 2 clefts in his chin. He's got like a triple chin Thanos thing going on. He's got this little tiny metal nose. And I looked at him and I was like, why in the hell would anybody ever think that I'm going to like this character? He looks disgusting. And, and then we learn to, reassess our personal biases. We learn that judging a book by its cover really is, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And the beholder, aka me in this case, I suppose, really watched One Piece and went, hey, you know what? I don't care that he looks the way that he does. In fact, I kind of love him all the more for it. He's a big freak. Just like me. Just like me. And isn't that just the joy of, consuming content, is finding stuff that reminds you of you in ways that you really never, ever thought they would. Reinhardt from Overwatch is another, for instance. I saw his design and I went, oh, great. They put a Gears of War big, weird, proportional man in this. I'm probably going to hate playing him. And now I'm a Reinhardt main. So we as humans, we assess our personal biases every day. Don't judge a book by its cover. Unless you're a designer, and then you're really just doing your job by judging a book by its cover. So really everything I say you can just ignore, because I also am a designer, and you know what? I judge a book by its cover every day. And sometimes I'm surprised. So that's the real lesson of life, and that's prepare to be surprised. Prepare to be surprised. Prepare to be surprised and, really learn new things about your personal biases every day. It's just a beautiful thing to do. So, interesting thing about Franky, since I'm just rambling, just incessantly, he wears this Hawaiian shirt, and so what I've done to this Hawaiian shirt of his is turned it into sort of a greaser leather jacket to match his big old pompadour. And then I've given these sort of Hawaiian shirt pattern on the inside of this sort of lining, so it's recognizable as him. He's got his iconic, the first kind of design that he shows up in is this Hawaiian shirt thing, but it's in something that's a bit more D&D. It feels a bit more fantasy, this wild leather jacket thing. So, another thing with Franky is that he had a terrible accident that was kind of self-imposed, but he did it for his friend, his mentor, his father figure. It really busted up his body, and he remade himself as a cyborg. He's a supernaturally good engineer. And what I did with that, actually took it into a fantasy, less, One Piece fantasy and more high fantasy world, was that instead of him turning his whole body into a robot, he has sort of mechanical limbs. Which is why I gave him these sort of scars, these little things around his stomach, these stitches, sort of suturing job or whatever you want to call it. It's very late. It's 2:07. Forgive me for how little I'm able to pay attention to what I'm saying. So I want to give him these sort of scars around his arm, and how I'm working this is almost as if he had this accident, but it only took parts of him. We're not going to go full, One Piece weirdness here, where it's like, how if he got hit by a train, how did he, manage to put himself back together again? Which is just a really good question, that I'm sure Oda will completely ignore or make a very hilariously good comment about, because that's how he works. Part of the appeal of One Piece is there are times where the creator, Eiichiro Oda, has an answer for something. He has answers for, he has people that write into him so many times with questions about the series, and he answers as many as he freaking can, bless his soul. And most of the time they are answered in the most ridiculous way possible. Not really very nonsensical all around, and I think that's just really charming and really cool. And I'm sure this might be one of those situations, like if someone said to him, how did Franky put himself together after he got hit by the train? And I think Oda would probably respond with something like, well, one part at a time, because part of Franky's deal is that he cannot reach his back. So his back is the most human part of him, which I think is just hilarious. The guy can give himself new legs and stuff, but he can't reach he can't turn his body around, or his head around or something to reach his back. It's really something else. One Piece is a hell of a show. But even more of a hell of a manga. Read the manga, folks. So you can see what I'm doing right now is I'm coming in here. I'm making his hands, which I'm gonna treat a bit more like D&D style, a little bit more clunky fantasy looking instead of this very human sort of turn that he has. His fingers. Guys, I will fully admit I'm getting real tired. And I'm sure that's reflected by how slowly I'm drawing and how slowly I'm speaking. Which I think is probably perfect for something like this, right? that was an accident. I think I'm going to keep it. In the words of Bob Ross, there are no mistakes, just a happy accident. That's kind of what this is, huh? It's kind of what I'm doing right now, is a little bit of my own flavor of Bob Ross. Just kind of using my skill set to hopefully let you just tune out Zen. That's the real goal by me doing this. And you know what? I may never post it. I may just sit here, really just do all this, talk to myself for no discernible reason other than to just say that I did it and I tried. And that's okay too. I'll let my voice get a little bit lower here. So we're getting to the part now. I had mentioned earlier that Franky from One Piece wears a Speedo. And I thought to myself when I was making this all those years ago, well, it seems a little strange to be putting a Speedo in, a high fantasy world. I mean, I suppose I could, someone would just have a loincloth or something. But there's gotta be some kind of alternative, right, to a Speedo. I kind of thought to myself, well, a kilt almost has the same regard as a Speedo in a way. It's like, you get your free legs kind of taking in the wind there. You've got this sort of idea that is like, well, there's nothing underneath. It's kind of scandalous to some. I think that's as good a reason as any for me to be like, yeah, there's my happy medium. Fantasy Franky wears a kilt. Instead of a Speedo. Let's move on to Robin now. I think we're just going to get ever so slight suggestion of her hand over there because I don't think there's much that I can do for that. Now for this part, which is going to be fun. Get her nose in there. Love giving her nose the sort of right angle treatment. Just sort of add an angle there. Her eyes. Almond shaped. Classic tiefling black eye look. The sclera, or whatever they call that. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I might be tuning out. Which is probably fine for my first stint in testing this out. Like I said, I'm probably not gonna release this to the general public. I'll give it a go with my friend group, and it seems to be something that people like. I think I'll maybe just give it another try. Can always put it on Twitter or something too. I have a small following, so it might be nice to see what a few other people think. Alright, guys. I'm going to call it for tonight. So I'm really losing steam. But I think this made for a pretty good insight into just what I'm doing tonight, and just a great tester for potentially things to come, and if I even want to try this ever again. Because hey, if nothing else, I can say I tried. That's what counts. Try everything. I hope you have a splendid and blessed day, or preferably, I assume, evening, because I'm trying to be as relaxing as possible. And I hope that you like what I'm doing here. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.